Please hold while I try to connect you.
Brad.
Hi, Brad. Jake Bush calling.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I was just calling to see when you were joining the webinar.
So it's what, 4 o'clock your time?
Yeah, we talked about jumping on there 15 to 20 minutes early, making sure that everything was lined up.
Oh, okay. So I was going to test out I'll still be in Zoom here to test out my microphone, but let me jump on yours. We'll do the same thing.
Okay.
I'll jump on the phone.
Sounds great. Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
Hey there, Brad.
Hey, maybe I should change my background to a Pax8 or something. Okay.
And your name still is listed as Mike Engstrom as well. So.
Is that? Wonder why it's Mike.
I don't know. I thought I'd listed you both as panelists. Maybe if he had. Oh, I can rename you. Here we go. Sorry, Brad Smith. Is that how you'd like it?
Yeah, Brad's fine.
There we go. Let me see here. I don't know if you had sent it, but I grabbed your headshot from LinkedIn and used that one. So.
That's fine. I'm younger there than my headshot.
Yeah, actually, now that I look at mine, I think I'm wearing the same sport coat in that picture, but that was taken on the Mediterranean about 1.5 years ago. So.
Oh, cool. So I don't use Zoom a lot. So where do you share your screen? Share screen? Okay, that's easy. Never mind. That's pretty simple.
Yep.
So I'm assuming you're going to start off and share. You have a couple slides you're going to go through, or what you're going to start off, obviously.
Yeah, I have an overview of. I created slides on antivirus. Here, why don't I share mine real quick? Share my screen.
I always forget what the settings button is in Zoom. You remember where that is?
It should be down along the bottom, I believe. All right, so you should see my slide deck here. I've got my agenda, meet the team. I went through and found some security threats this week. And then what is antivirus? Definition-based, NextGen, some common threats pulled from Sentinel-1. Why leave legacy antivirus? And then I've got that demo that we talked about.
In this demonstration, I will show how.
So when do we want, so I actually have basically I got 3 or 4 slides about explaining what EDR is versus traditional AV. So I think before you do the demo, we kind of want to go through kind of the introduction, right?
So you've got.
So I can show you what I have. And I don't have to do, if you're, let me just share this.
Yep.
So we can do it. Okay, so you see my screen here, right?
Yep.
And I can jump in whenever you want to. We don't need to do this first screen. And we don't need, this is, again, if you're going to kind of cover cybercrime in general and kind of that needs to be introduced. And if you're going to introduce that or I'm going to, it's fine. But where I kind of wanted to show you where I was going to go with just a general overview of AV and EDR is under kind of security landscape, you know. And this actually came from a presentation, but one in every 11 seconds is the predicted frequency of a business falling victim to ransomware attack in 21. So here I'm just kind of setting the stage that EDR is replacing traditional AV.
Yep.
And talk about why traditional can only stop threats that are already identified, right? Keeping this pretty high level, but what the difference is. And then this is why EDR is kind of replacing, why EDR is taking the momentum now to replace traditional AV. And then what is EDR? Okay, so it's coming into play now. Very simple, you know, here's what it is in layman's terms.
Yep.
In semi-technical terms, but I think it's understand. I try to keep things as understandable and simple as I can, right? So you get people understand, business person understands what this is.
So I'm gonna hide a couple of my things here based on what you've got. What is EDR? So you want to do that before we do the demo, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to tell them what it is, what it's doing. Then you can kind of show them, show them a demo of this in action after we describe what EDR does, and it does have a rollback capability.
So I'm going to pull back. Do you have anything that just explains what is antivirus? Why do we have it? I don't think you did. All right, so how about this?
I do have this. It protects and remediates against, see where I have that. Traditional AV can only stop threats that are already identified. So I was going to talk about they have to have a signature created that will look at that existing file. So it's a file, it will actually check to see if they know if it's a bad file or not. That's really what it does.
So why don't we start off with yours? I'm going to move you to the beginning and then we'll move through mine. So some of mine will be a little bit redundant, but because I go into a little bit more detail, pros and cons of NextGen versus, you know, the old stuff, the legacy stuff. And so we can continue it through that. So why don't I move you to the beginning of that?
That's fine.
I think that would make the most sense. So
that's what AV, here's what EDR is. And then I had the last slide I had, really again, keep it, was just the impact on your business.
Yep.
And here's how it'll affect your business. The EDR, they can undo changes made by threats, saving hours compared to re-imaging desktops and servers.
Okay.
Best approach to prevent and remediate ransomware. And some EDR products support rollback options to restore files that have been encrypted by ransomware, which would be a good way to go into the demo from here, right? Here's how it would work.
Yeah. So, well, Jesus, we have 3 minutes.
I didn't think you were going to do much on the content. So that's why I just kind of said,
No,
Here's what
that's fine. Yeah, I'll move you back right in front of the demo. We'll just be swapping who's sharing screen, but that's it. That's fine.
yeah, if you want to pull some of your screen slides out, go ahead if you think you need to. So we're not too repetitive. I don't like to do too many slides, right? That gets people kind of, they can get
Yeah,
bored.
and I just like to use them as a reference. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pull out my what are these things, and I'm going to hide that one. I'm going to hide that one. So I'm going to jump from what does it do? What are the common threats? All right. I'm going to hide why leave. Yeah, leave. So I'm going to go, what does it do? What does antivirus do? What are some of the common threats that can bypass your antivirus? And then we'll go into yours.
Okay.
So I'm going to pull out those. Okay.
So I'll stop sharing because we're going to probably have somebody on here soon.
Yeah. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. So after common threats, then we're going to you. And then back to me for the demo. Got it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. I'm going to go live right now, and we're going to chat going into the start. Ready?
Yep.
All right. So we'll give it a couple more minutes here. It's like Mike's jumping in from wherever he is.
I have a technician that may join too.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Your technician is already here.
There he is, Justin. Hey, Justin. Justin knows. Well, he knows. Yeah, he knows Sentinel-1 like his backhand. So,
Justin, what's your last name?
Passero, P-A-S-S-E-R-O.
P-I-S-S-E-R-O. Is that correct?
No, P-A-S-S-E-R-O.
P-A-S-S-E-R-O.
Yeah.
There's a little glitch in your audio.
Sorry, I was in the
that's
middle of
fine.
adjusting everything.
Okay. Let's see. One more minute, then we'll get started. Every time I do one of these, I do some what's the current news in security. Not that we're not following it every day, and it always scares the heck out of me every time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get started here. Justin, I'm sorry I don't have you on my introduction slide, but let's see.
Oh no, it's all good.
I'm gonna share my screen here. All right. So this is the third in our IT You Can Trust webinar series from JP Merck & Company and our partners. This month, we were talking about endpoint protection you can trust. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're going to introduce the team, going to go through some of the current challenges that have been in the news lately. We'll discuss antivirus and what it does, and some of the common threats that are faced that antivirus can help us with. I'm going to hand it over to our partner, Brad Smith from PAX8, to go through some details on some legacy antivirus and current NextGen antivirus. And then we've got a little demo for you from one of the technologies we'll be discussing, which is Sentinel-1. So, Brad, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Brad Smith. Brad Smith from PAX8, and PAX8 is a cloud distributor. So we provide a number of different cloud services and vendors, from security to continuity, infrastructure, all those different type of solutions that Jake can provide to his customers. So that's really our role in what we do here, and glad to support and be a part of this presentation today.
And I am Jake Bush. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of JP Merck & Co. We are a managed IT service provider. As you can see here on the screen, founded in 2004. We offer one solution to our clients, and that is the complete IT department for small and mid-sized businesses. Between Jake, between myself and Joe Mercadante, JP Merck's founder, we have more than 50 years of experience running and supporting IT for business. So we started this webinar series as a monthly thing to discuss the different technologies and the different challenges that that businesses are facing, especially around security. We've covered in the past. We've covered live hacks, live security breaches. We've covered business continuity and disaster recovery. And coming up, we've got conversations on the dark web, phishing, password management, multi-factor authentication, things like that. So quickly, I want to touch on the biggest security threats this week. So there was a huge spam fine in the UK. The UK fined American Express $125,000 for sending 4 million spam emails. American Express tried to claim that they were service emails, which are allowable, but of the 50 million total that they sent out, 4 million of them, so 8%, I think, were actually sent to opted out customers, and the UK didn't buy their explanations. We've also seen with the conflict in the Middle East, it's blurring lines between real world attacks and virtual attacks. A group called Agrius has been launching attacks in Israel in the midst of the Middle East conflict. The malware that they're leveraging is called Apostle, and has unconfirmed links to Iran, according to some cybersecurity researchers. So the cybersecurity and cyber threat landscape is now one of the new frontiers in warfare. And even Apple, people like to talk about Apple being immune to malware, but as we know, nothing's immune to malware unless it's not connected to anything. So in the past week, researchers have discovered the XCS-SET malware, and it was allowing people to take covert screenshots. It was the malware was taking screenshots of whatever people were doing on their computers. That has been fixed, as we understand, in the most recent update of the Apple operating system. So yet another reminder as to why you should always do your patches and do your operating system updates. So to get into the topic for this month, antivirus. What does antivirus do? Why is it important? most people know, but want to go through some of the basics here. Ransomware is the thing that you'll hear about most in the news. It is one of the most dangerous threats to businesses. It can cost you millions of dollars, both in ransomware, but also in fines. The United States government has now started levying fines against companies that pay ransoms. And so it can cost you a whole lot of money, a lot of reputation, a lot of time. Good antivirus can prevent the theft of data. Your company's data is one of your most important assets. So you want to make sure that you are doing the best that you can to protect against that theft, as well as the theft of financial information. Between Brad and I'm sure we've seen many, many thefts of financial data, whether it's credit card numbers, client information, things like that. So antivirus allows you to respond to and remediate threats very quickly. If you are using NextGen antivirus or EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, which Brad will talk about in a little bit. And it also allows, your systems will report on attacks so your business can respond. Many attacks, especially with older antivirus, can go unnoticed even. And so the theft of data, the theft of financial information, that can continue if you don't find it. Not generally a one-time thing. So good antivirus will report on those attacks and not only remediate it, but report it to you so you can take the appropriate measures. As I've mentioned, there are two options for antivirus. There is legacy antivirus, which is generally based on downloaded definitions. They get downloaded once a day or what have you. And then there's NextGen antivirus or endpoint detection response. And that would be based on machine learning and artificial intelligence. We'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So what are some of the common threats that can even bypass your antivirus, especially legacy antivirus? Advanced threats are nation-grade hacking tools. Countries are finding that if they proliferate their malware, countries like Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, they are not only developing their own attack tools, but they are disseminating those tools for other bad actors to use. Even to the level of what you may have heard of, which is called ransomware as a service. Some of these nation states or cyber threat groups will make their software available just for rent. You can rent ransomware, carry out your attacks, make off with your Bitcoin, and leave. You don't even have to develop the software yourself. Polymorphic malware is specifically designed to defeat definition-based antivirus. It will respond to the antivirus that it finds or disable the antivirus that it finds and work around it. Malicious documents, the file's not even being put on your computer, but everybody uses email. Those threats can come in through email. And if you stick with us next month, you can hear about some of those threats. Fileless malware, the newer generations of malware are now not even putting those bad programs on your computer, but they're just running code within the memory of your computer. So sometimes there's not even a file for antivirus to find. And encrypted traffic can turn the security measures against you. Encrypted web traffic, when you are browsing the web, most of your websites, especially banking websites, email websites, things like that, will use secure traffic or encrypted traffic. And now the malware is using encrypted traffic, so the antivirus, your firewall, things like that, can't even see the traffic as it happens. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad to talk a bit about legacy antivirus and EDR.
Thanks, Jake. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I think we can, everybody see it okay?
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, let me just start here with, Jake gave a really good introduction about some of the current threats that exist today. And again, it's you don't need to do a lot of searching to find all the new threats that have come about in the world on an ongoing basis. You know, even with very recent with the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack too. So they're very prevalent in the news today and continue and become more, more difficult to stop and have a higher level of expertise behind them or complication behind them. So what we're seeing today is that there's a stat that came out that 1 in every 11 seconds is the predicted frequency of a business that will fall victim to some type of ransomware attack in 2021. So it used to be where they would go after ransom attacks for big companies. That's because that was where the biggest amount of payback was. But now with the ability to do bots and to buy these kits on the black market for such a low amount of money, small business, SMB businesses are very vulnerable, and they typically don't have the type of security in place that an enterprise account has. So everyone now is really can become victim to a ransomware attack, and you really got to layer good security solutions in to prevent that from your business. So because of all these new threats that are seen today, you're seeing really a change from traditional AV, traditional antivirus, which Jake did a great job as far as introducing what AV does. If it's basically a means to, traditional AV will when it's going to look at a specific file, and if it sees that file was a known bad file, it will stop it. And it does a pretty good job of that. So if it's something that, again, is known in its database that this is a bad file, traditional AV will stop that file. So what the bad guys have done is they've now moved to what is called behavioral threats. So behavioral threats are not a file per se, and they could be a fileless attack. It could be something in memory. They could be some software that starts acting being an anomaly. It's not so. They've kind of hidden these threats, and now it's really overall what we call behavioral threats, and that's really where you kind of need something like EDR. And EDR has started taking place in the last couple of years. Some of the EDR companies, the SentinelOnes, CrowdStrikes, they started replacing traditional AV with the Fortune 200, the Global 5,000, over the last 4 or 5 years, and they've moved a lot of those large companies off to EDR solutions, and now really EDR is really starting to take off, and we have thousands of partners that we help across the United States, North America, now into the UK, but they've moved a large number of their customers' endpoints over to EDR just because they've seen their customers get hit with ransomware. And really the analogy here I have in here is that traditional AV is kind of like it's kind of like yesterday's news. If it was known yesterday, it'll stop it. But for anything that is a 0-day threat, fileless attack, behavioral threat, then they go right through the AV and right into your system, and you'll still see either a compromise or a ransomware attack, something of that nature.
And what I've even seen in the past is those more traditional antiviruses. They're glad to tell you that the attack happened. To your point about yesterday's news, they're glad to report, hey, there was malware here. It already did its thing, but just wanted to let you know that there was malware. Not the best way to respond to things.
That's true. And so kind of what is EDR to introduce that? Again, it's really more of a proactive approach. So this is a definition that I found that is really comprised of monitoring software. So like I say, the traditional AV is going to look at a file, yes or no, is this a bad guy or not bad guy? Where EDR software is still going to have that initial look at the file to see if it's something it knows about. So it's not, you don't need traditional AV with EDR. You can have EDR that will still do the same thing as traditional AV as far as looking at the reputation of the file. But what it's doing next, this is the big difference, is it actually has all this monitoring software, this artificial intelligence software, because these behavioral threats aren't obvious. And so what an EDR solution has to do is just look at, if it sees some type of anomaly, it's going to keep its eyes on it. It's actually going to create kind of a, what they call a process tree to keep track of what this so-called potential threat's doing. And once it determines based on, once it watches that potential threat and makes a determination this is a threat, then since it's created this process tree and storyline, then it'll take action and stop that threat. But the real significance here is that what you can't do with traditional AV is that it's going to be able to undo those changes that that threat did. So any changes that were made to the registry of the system, files that were added, files that were deleted, a good EDR solution has what we call like an undo button, where it'll take remediation and it'll actually undo the changes that behavioral threat was attempting to do to the system. And you'll have what's nice about that too, is you're going to actually, again, have that storyline, that process tree. You can see where that threat came from. You can see what that threat was attempting to do. You're going to have a full log file too. So this is, you'll have that kind of visibility of which you wouldn't have with an AV product. And finally, as kind of Jake mentioned too, instead of relying on definition updates, which if you guys, typically traditional AV will get their definitions downloaded, or they call them signatures sometimes. And that's really kind of their basically an update to keep that traditional AV updated with its latest threats. So where an EDR solution isn't relying on these definitions. So you don't have to worry about, do I have the latest definitions on my system? A good EDR system is going to always be updated in real time. It's going to look to see if that file is a file that's in its database. It's not going to rely on definitions, which is really kind of again, more of a traditional, more of a legacy approach to dealing with these kind of attacks. And finally, kind of as you want to look at what's the impact on my business if I have an EDR solution. And I kind of touched a little bit on this versus an AV solution. Again, traditional AV, if it stops it, it's great. If it goes through and makes changes and gets on your network and actually can spread throughout your network, we call those lateral movements. You really don't know what the threat, how the threat entered, what it did. So you're left many times with having to do a re-imaging of your servers and your workstations, where like I talked about, the EDR solution has that undo button, that remediation capability. So it'll undo those changes. So today, EDR is really your best approach to prevent and remediating ransomware. And then we have one of the EDR solutions that we have that's available that Jake actually has implemented at his IT practice, is that there's an option there to actually do a rollback option. So if the worst case, if a behavioral threat gets through and actually encrypts files on a workstation or a server, then it's able to do a rollback to a previous state. So it's just amazing. This kind of technology is very complex. It's really advancement based on, compared to what traditional AV did, and being able to actually roll back and see all these encrypted files, where typically you'd have to pay a ransom for, and actually utilize an EDR tool that can actually do that rollback to and bring back those files in their normal state. It's pretty amazing. And I think that's one of the things now I'm going to turn over to Jake, and he's actually going to show kind of a short demo of that.
Thank you, Brad. That was great. Sentinel-1 is one of the technologies that Brad and I have both referenced. It is one of the leading next-gen antivirus providers. It is the software that JP Merck deploys to our clients. So I do want to go ahead and share a little demo of what that technology is capable of and how it responds to threats. Oh, this wants me to go through. Cool. There we are.
In this demonstration, I will show how the Sentinel-1 agent will detect and prevent an attack utilizing an exploit for the CVE 2017-0199 vulnerability. The version of the agent being tested was released before the vulnerability was publicly known, while it was still considered a zero-day. This attack delivers the Dridex
Sorry about that.
Trojan through a malicious email attachment. First, I will show the attack from beginning to end with the Sentinel-1 agent configured to alert-only mode. This mode will allow the threat to continue running even after being detected. I will then rerun the attack in quarantine mode to demonstrate how Sentinel-1 will detect and kill the threat as it would in a production environment. Because the attacker's machine is offline, I am using Fiddler as a web proxy to serve the malicious files that would normally be accessible if the attacker's machine were still alive. I am also using Process Monitor to record the process creation events during the attack. The attack begins when a malicious RTF file that was sent as an email attachment is opened. Once Microsoft Word has finished loading the initial RTF file, it will soon close and a second document will open. Notice that the Sentinel-1 agent has detected a threat. At this point, the Dridex malware is downloaded and running. We can see this in the process monitor logs. This process is the initial Word document that was opened. This MSHTA process was the second stage of the exploit. This task kill is what killed the original Word document that was opened. This SVC host right here is actually the Dridex malware. And this WinWord right here is the decoy document that was opened after the attack was done. We can see in the network connections that a document was downloaded. And for the exploit to work correctly, the content type of this document must be application HTA. This is where the Dridex sample was downloaded. And this sample.doc is the decoy document that was opened after the attack. I will now rerun the attack, but this time the Sentinel-1 agent is configured to quarantine mode. In quarantine mode, when a threat is detected, all files associated with that threat will be quarantined and all processes associated with that threat will be killed. As we can see, the Sentinel-1 agent has detected a threat. The document has been quarantined. And the process logs, we can see the initial Word process has been killed. And the first stage of the exploit has been killed. In Fiddler, we can see that the attack was stopped before the Dridex malware was even downloaded.
All right. So a little bit of a dry video, but a really good demonstration of what NextGen antivirus can do for you and how powerful it is. I will say that we actually had a difficult time in testing Sentinel-1 antivirus. In most of these cases, your IT company or your IT department will take a computer and test out software. We downloaded actually malware and ransomware to test it out on a machine. And we found it almost impossible to test Sentinel-1 because we couldn't even put the malware, the payload files onto the computer. It just scrubbed them off. So we actually had to disable Sentinel-1 or put it into notify mode, as that video had noted, put the files on there, and then activate Sentinel-1 and try to basically detonate that payload. So really great tools for protecting your business. At JP Merck, we use the phrase defense in depth a lot. And what that means is there are many layers to your company's digital security, your technology security. It starts with education. It starts with password management, multi-factor authentication, which you see that we have coming up in July. All of the communication that your business does, both outgoing, but especially incoming. That's where phishing training comes in, and education, including phishing simulations and other email threats, and monitoring the dark web for your company's information. For our clients, we do monitor the dark web on a regular basis. We are notified if any email addresses, any information having to do with our client staff ever shows up on the dark web, passwords, personal information, credit card numbers, things like that. It actually generates a ticket with us, and we reach out to the users, have them change passwords, and notify them that their information has been shared on the dark web. So we're going to be covering a lot of that in June with more partners. If there are any questions, please feel free to add those into chat. Let's see here. And actually, in point of fact, for anyone who's attending today, speaking of the dark web, we'd like to do a dark web scan for you. If you send an email to webinars@jpmerc.com and mention that you attended the webinar today, we would be happy to do a one-time dark web scan for you and return those results. Let you know what of your accounts has been compromised. Those reports do, in some cases, tell us the website that was compromised that those credentials and such came from. You can also request some virtual CIO time. So you can request time either with myself or with our CEO, Joe Mercadante. If you have questions about your business, IT, strategy at the management level, or we can talk about the technologies that you have right now, and maybe we can give you some ideas on the best way to leverage those technologies or secure them. Brad, anything else from you? Or we also have Justin from PAX8 on the call. Gentlemen, anything else from either of you before we wrap up?
One thing I like to talk about is the worst case scenario. Say a computer gets fully encrypted, ransomwared, but I have Sentinel-1 on that machine and I have to do a rollback. A lot of the big thing people worry about is time. How long is it going to take to get that machine back to a working state? Because time is money. I can honestly say with Sentinel-1, minutes. Kid you not. From the moment I hit rollback on that machine to where it's actually working back the way it was, it's literally seconds to a minute at most. And I'm talking rolling back 16,000 files in one shot, because that's what ransomware did. And so that's the power of a lot of these next generation EDRs, is the ability to get me back and running in case the worst case scenario hits. And so that's another thing a lot of people have to realize is, how long does it take to me get back? I witnessed a ransomware attack on a hospital nearby me, and they didn't have any backups. They had no EDR solution. That hospital was pen and paper for files for 6 months. Imagine that kind of, loss, essentially, of all those files and things like that. Versus with Sentinel-1, I click a button, I'm back up and running in a matter of minutes. So that's another big thing when it comes to a cost benefit analysis of utilizing an EDR and things like that is, if the worst happens, how quick am I able to get back up and running to where I need to be? So.
And yeah, that's a very good point. The ability to recover from these, if they do happen, is incredibly important. Sentinel-1 does have that capability, and it also, ties back into that defense in-depth strategy. You need that on your endpoints. You can make all the policies you want about, all of your business documents get stored in OneDrive and your OneDrive's backed up. But we all know that people put documents in their documents folders on their desktops, things like that. And so that ability to recover on the endpoints is very important, as well as the ability to recover on the servers. And that goes to your business continuity and disaster recovery technologies and those strategies as well. If you would like access to our past webinars, please reach out, or you can go to jpmerc.com/webinars. This webinar will be archived on that website in the next couple of days. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to email us, webinars@jpmerc.com. Happy to answer any questions. Happy to sign you up for that free dark web scan that we talked about. Brad, any last words?
No, I think that I'm glad that Justin came in there with a couple of stories, because we hear about these things every day, right? Where some partner will call us up and say, you know, we talked about EDR, you kind of recommended it, here's why. And they say, you know, we haven't had any problems yet, or we haven't had a ransomware attack. And then it's what you don't want to do is be the one where a month later you call up and say, it happened, Brad, and this can't happen again. And I really feel bad that they're in a situation where they've lost their data, they're held ransom, and right now the tactics these guys are taking beyond wanting the money, they want the ransom, but they also will, if they get pushback on getting that money, they're going to say, okay, we're going to put all your data, we have your data, we're going to put it on the dark web. So all your confidential financial, your customer data is out there. And there's even a third tactic now where there was an oil company got hit, or a gasoline, well, it was an oil company with gasoline retail operation, and they had a loyalty program with their customers. And so then they started reaching out to their customers saying, we've got your email address and we're going to put that on the dark web. So do all you can. Don't be the situation where you got to get hit first before you take action. And that's really the one thing I would just kind of end this webinar with.
Yep. Well, Brad and Justin, thanks so much for joining. As always, we try to bring the best information to the broader community. You know, we're sharing this information publicly because we want to help companies. We've been working on that for over 15 years now. So, Brad, Justin, thanks so much. Again, I am Jake from JP Merc, and we will see you all next month. Bye-bye.